Venus, the goddess of love, right? That's probably what most people would already know. But in the context of an astrological chart, what does the Venus placement tell you? That's the question, and I've got the answers. So let's begin with the short answer. Your Venus placement can represent what love means to you, what peace means to you, and what and how you value. In other words, your value system. So that's it. That's your short answer. But believe me, there's far more to it than that. Stick around and find out. So let's begin our long answer with looking at the namesake goddess. So Venus was obviously a goddess of the ancient Roman pantheon, and her Greek equivalent was called Aphrodite. So a lot of people would tell you that these two were the goddess of love. That's not necessarily wrong, but the word love that we use in English is a little bit simplistic versus how these people would understand basically the spectrum of human emotions. So Aphrodite was the goddess of sex and lust as much as anything else. Her remit has more to do with desire than wanting to spend the rest of your life with someone, which is kind of what we would equate love with more these days. Something that she was characterized with in a lot of myths was that when the NRE, that's new relationship energy if you didn't know, when that spark of new relationship energy started to die out, Aphrodite tended to get quite impatient with the lover in question. It seems to be quite portrayed as being quite lazy when it came to actually like working on a relationship and kind of making it work beyond the lust side of things. In spite of this, she was actually married. So Venus Aphrodite was married to Hephaestus Vulcan, who was the blacksmith of Olympus. He was the guy who made the weapons, and he also made Zeus's thunderbolts. The thing is, he was definitely not the right guy for Venus or Aphrodite. He was married to his job. He absolutely just committed to being a blacksmith, and that was his whole thing, which is not what she needed in her life and from her man. He did make beautiful jewellery and adornments for Aphrodite and for others as well, which she really liked, being the goddess of aesthetics as well as what we're talking about just now. But ultimately he was an unfulfilling lover for her, and she is portrayed as having affair after affair after affair. One of her lovers was actually Mars, and the goddess of war, of course, and Hephaestus himself, her husband. He set an elaborate trap to expose their infidelity to everybody. This massive, I think it was a gold chain, which basically meant they couldn't escape, and lifted up, and then everyone could see that Mars and Venus were in bed together, basically. And on the Olympian onlookers, Hermes was there, and he apparently remarked to, I think it's to Apollo, he said like, I wouldn't mind a piece of that ass. And later he did get a piece of that ass, and from that union between Hermes and Aphrodite resulted Hermaphrodite, which is obviously where that expression comes from that we use today. All this is to say that in the context of a chart, a Venus placement can reveal a lot about romantic intensity, and more specifically sexual romantic attraction, like the passion of the moment, right? So your Venus placement can say a lot about your desire nature. There is another side of Venus, and it's actually one that people don't talk about quite as much, and it's to do with the concept of self-worth. So Venus Aphrodite was often portrayed as constantly needing validation. So of course, as the very embodiment of sex and beauty and desire as well, this often came in the form of needing to be recognized as beautiful. A good example of this is in what's called the Judgment of Paris, where Aphrodite, who's obviously goddess of love like we're talking about here, Hera, who was the wife of Zeus, and Athena, who was a warrior goddess, they had an argument over who was the most beautiful, and they got this guy Paris to come and choose which one. They got him to decide, essentially. And Aphrodite, it was really important for her to win this, of course, and essentially she did win him over, and she won the argument, which, as I say, kicked off the Trojan War. She won him over basically by seduction, and by the offer. Her offer was that if Paris chose her, she would make sure that he had the most beautiful woman in the world, which was Helen of Troy, of course. Another example in Greek mythology is when Psyche, who was mortal born, she was born with a beauty that was just so incredible that it was said to actually rival Aphrodite, and Aphrodite was having absolutely none of that, and so she set out to have Psyche killed. A more modern example of this same kind of thing is actually in Snow White. The Wicked Witch, of course, with her mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all? And then one day when the mirror says, it's not you, it's Snow White, then that's when the witch decides that she's got to kill Snow White. And it's very interesting that the glyph for Venus even looks like a hand mirror in a sense. Not so much the mirror, the magic mirror, but it does look like a hand mirror, which is very interesting synchronicity, I think. So you can kind of see how your Venus placement can represent where you derive your sense of self-worth from. In Aphrodite's case, of course, it was obviously from her sexuality, but that of course doesn't have to be your case. It's about, it shows in your chart the area where you need to receive appreciation and positive feedback to imbue yourself with strong self-esteem. So one final thing that I want to mention about Venus is, apart from the love and the sex kind of thing, is that she was also the goddess of beauty and aesthetics and art as well. As I mentioned, her husband Vulcan made this lovely jewelry for her, and she, that was right up her alley. Of course, beauty is always going to be objective. We say that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, of course, and that's reflected in the really wide variety of artistic, musical, literary styles that we've developed over the millennia as a species. She was, as I say, the goddess of aesthetics, and if you look at actually the Spotify Vaporwave playlist, actually has the head of a statue of Venus as its thumbnail, which I think is quite fitting. I think Venus would be happy with that one. So as I say, your Venus placement can say a lot about where you find beauty, things that you find to be beautiful. Alright, those are my thoughts on Venus and what it can mean in a chart. Thank you very much for watching the video. If you want to see more of these kind of videos, if you want more of them to watch, you can let me know by hitting the like and the subscribe button below, and also by leaving me a little comment, which will help the algorithm. Wonderful. Alright, well, I hope to see you next time. Cheers.